the little things like hiring that first employee.
Yeah.
You remember what it felt like. It was like, wait a second, it's one thing to be responsible for my own life. Now I'm responsible for someone else's livelihood. And, they got to get paid first before I get paid. Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But it's like you do it and you never look back and be like, oh, gosh, why did I hire employees? I mean, for years, not realizing by not having an assistant, I was the assistant.
Your first salesperson, because you're the sales guy. You're running
Right.
around doing the sales, and then all of a sudden you can kind of let it go a little bit, and then you have more time to focus on the bigger pieces of building your business.
Welcome to Constructive Interference, where visionaries sharpen visionaries. I'm your host, Rufus Crescent, diving into the minds of those who dare to dream big and innovate boldly. Join me as we explore their stories, uncover their challenges, and learn from their journeys. Let's get inspired and sharpen our visions together.
Welcome to another edition of Constructive Interference, where we take like-minded, vision-driven entrepreneurs and we put them together in the same room and see what kind of amplification happens. Just like with constructive interference, when two frequencies are overlapping, they amplify. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the whole premise, the metaphor being used for the podcast. So before we get started, I want to I'm with Spencer Sens with Complete Logistical Services and with AmeriClean. We'll talk a little bit more about these businesses and kind of his journey, but I want to hit Spencer with a couple of little random questions just to get the audience to know you. So these are random for you and me. So I got a list of like 100 here. I'll tell you what, pick a number between 1 and 100. You can't pick 100. That's already been used.
18.
18. All right. So this is fun. What's your favorite childhood cartoon character?
Speedy Gonzales.
Speedy Gonzales. Now, why is that?
Because the sucker was always running.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
so I remember, do you remember watching Speed Racer?
Yes.
So I would go to my cousin's house when I was a kid and sleep over at his house, and Saturday morning we'd wake up and go watch cartoons, because the kids these days, they don't have it like we had it, right? We had good cartoons, like the real
we
good
did
stuff,
have great
like Tom
cartoons.
and Jerry's, Bugs Bunny, little Speedy Gonzales, but we had Speed Racer too.
Speed Racer too.
But she wouldn't let us watch Speed Racer. I'm like, that's my jam. That's my thing. Why not? She says, we're not allowed to watch Speed Racer in this house. I'm like, why? Go back and watch Speed Racer. You'll understand why now. That was the most violent cartoon ever made.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in every episode, someone died in a car crash, was either driving off a cliff, landed in lava, burning to death. And like, that was the show. And I'm like, I couldn't get enough of it. So she restricted that. I'm like, that was just good parenting. I think my parents were a little bit more absent than that. So
I never thought of it that way.
I didn't get until like, why don't they air Speed Racer? Oh, that's why. Yeah, that makes sense. So
you don't see reruns of it.
No,
it's too loud.
Which I thought was pretty cool. But anyways, I guess I always like this one. What's your favorite book to recommend to people?
My favorite book,
or a recent book. I mean,
well, I'll tell you my favorite book.
Go ahead.
The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Okay.
And it's a book that tells you, it's a history book. Like I love history and like to watch stuff, but it's a history book that tells you how the Federal Reserve was created and all the different players, and how it went through and how it was kind of snuck in on the American people and things like that by calling it the Federal Reserve.
Right. So they go to the Rothschilds and the history.
Yeah. And it tells you how they all went. There's an island off the coast of Georgia, how all these bigwigs made this secret meeting on this island. And so that's kind of how it went. And you're like, whoa. And then towards the end of the book, I think this book was written in the late 50s, early 60s. And they had some predictions towards the end of the book about how certain things in the world would change if the world moved that way, and it's changing.
Wow!
You can watch it. It's a big book, but once I got into it, it was.
Well, if they have it on Audible, it increases the likelihood of me reading it by 100%.
Maybe, yeah. I read it in the deer stand. You know, I like to hunt, and I bring a book with me just about every time I go, and I probably missed so many deer because I was so reading a book and not paying attention to.
So that's interesting thing about visionaries is we all kind of have all these great ideas, or at least we think they're great ideas at the time, but they're nonetheless they're ideas. great is to be debatable. We can't implement all of them. We like to throw chaos into our businesses. We're the world's greatest problem solvers, but we're also the world's greatest problem creators. So where do you go to kind of hone in and focus on the good ones and really stay focused?
Usually I just lock my office door. I've been that entrepreneur that has the million ideas and chases every shiny penny that flips out in front of me because I think they're all great ideas because they were my idea, right? And I think through the 15 years or so of owning my own business and running my own business, I've got a pretty good judgment of when I have a good idea and when it's not. I still write them all down because maybe I'm going to come back to it a different day because at a different point in my life, it might actually be a good idea to do without causing too much chaos. But typically, these days, what I'll do is I'll say, man, I got this idea, and I'll put it out in front of my employees and say, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And if they say it's shit, it's shit. Sometimes I do it outside of that. You know, I'll still do the idea or implement it, but in a little more with a little more process and a little more thought to it, so that the chaos isn't as bad, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so I kind of suffer from the same thing, except I'm the guy watching the squirrel carrying the shiny object that's running down the rabbit hole. So, so there's a lot of ideas. And now you bring these things to your team. Do they ever make you doubt yourself, or do they, because it's disrupting to come up with a new clever idea?
Honestly, I think I care about the chaos piece of it. Like, what's it going to do to disrupt, the flow or the culture of the company? I think that's more what I worry about when I throw my idea out. If they all say it's shit, I still think it's a good idea. Like, I think the worst self-doubt, the worst doubt is comes with it within. Sometimes if I'm trying to do something and it's just not working out, then I think you can get in your own head. I don't really let most people get into my head too much. Okay. And I think that's I think it's more me, with certain self-doubts and stuff. But
interesting. Now, I think that you do need to protect the confidence that you do have the people that can't think like us, that, it's getting them out of their comfort zone is not something they like.
No.
So trusting your instincts is hard sometimes. You look for that validation, but you're still going to do what you're going to do. I even had an integrator at one point working for me, and I would go to her. It's kind of like that sounding board. So I say, hey, let me just kind of run some ideas. And I was like, here's what I'm thinking, this, and this. And I'm kind of leaning in this direction. She's like, why do you want my opinion anyway? You're just going to do what you want to do. I'm like, wrong answer. Says, yes, I am going to do what I think is best for me and for the company and the people in it. I still doesn't mean that I'm not open to other ideas or, hey, help me ask better questions. And I think it was in that moment. Well, first of all, I knew that she wasn't the right integrator for me because she needs to be able to hear me.
Yes.
Because I think we need consideration for ideas. Not everything's a bad idea. And, oh, by the way, you're here because we had a great idea at one point and we're able to execute on it, okay? So don't just assume that every idea is a bad idea. So I think that is where, and you and I belong to so many of the same things we've done. So we actually met at the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses.
Yep.
That's when we first, so we were in the same cohort, and we learned a lot about each other's businesses there, and then we reconnected later on through the EOS community, and then I let you go to Birth into Giants and guinea pig it for us. I think we were both considering the time. We were looking at
I remember you
Strategic
were like,
Coach.
let me know how it goes.
so Strategic Coach, fantastic organization. Love Dan Sullivan's books. And I'm like, it was in surround sound, Rufus, you need to join Strategic Coach. It's a great, I'm like, I'm sure it is. But the more I looked at it, it's like, for me, it would look like it was kind of a mile wide and an inch deep. And then you discovered the Birth into Giants, and you were considering Strategic Coach at the same time as well.
Sure was.
And what you started describing was more of an inch wide and a mile deep. I'm like, oh, so it's a whole week program.
Yep.
That's what I need in my life. I need to slow down and just focus on one thing. And I needed that structure to really figure out what the hell is it I want. Sorry, again, rabbit hole, right? But then we have like I said, the EOS community. We then with the Vistage. We're currently in the Vistage group together. So I started to kind of understand that I needed the people that were like me in my life, the people that could hear me and see me and say yes and not the yes buts, right? That's a great idea, but it could be better if it was this. And you can't do that necessarily with your spouse. You can't do that with your employees. You can't do that with your certain friends. It was the people that were like you that could see you.
That's 100%. You know, when I present an idea to my employees, I'm looking for how can we make it better, et cetera. When we sit in those other groups with like-minded people, and it goes with everything. I mean, we've had personal issues that we discuss, I think, in our families that, our problems are a little bit different as business owners than some other people's problems. And when you have a problem as a business owner, you can go to another business owner and talk about it. And I think that brings me to mentorship. Like growing up, I didn't know what a mentor even was. And I think the very first group that I joined, it was a Visage group. And I think, this guy, Jim, took me under his wing. He was kind of like a father figure, tough, salty old man. And, but he was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And once I started realizing that mentorship and really started gaining that business experience, then now when a young person who's trying to start their business or something like that comes and they look to me sometimes, and I'm more willing to give it because I was in that same boat, needing that. So I think, business leaders should be helping business leaders in every aspect.
I try to be the person that I needed at every stage of my career for other people if I can help it, because there were so many people that weren't there. There's people that I could have used at those phases, someone to be that salty old man, to be my truth teller, to say, you know what, Rufus, stop whining and get back to work, or pick yourself up, or stop having a pity party or whatever. Look, Rufus, that's the price of admission. You wanted to be a business owner, here it is. You got to take it all, and it's those truth tellers that don't let you,
they don't let you slide,
get away with shit.
Oh
right.
Yeah, they don't let you slide. I think, and that was, I think Jim, I can't tell you how many times he MF'd me and let me know what the real world was like. And he, suck it up, buttercup, this is what's coming. And but he also, the way it works is, okay, you're not dwelling on it. This is what you need to do. This is how we're gonna fix whatever the problem is or the situation, and you just move through it. It's gonna suck. Embrace the suck and let's go. And I think that was an eye opener for me. And then just listening to, other business leaders talk about how they grow their businesses and how they create culture and all those important things that come with a business owner. It's really cool because everybody does it a little bit different. Every personality is a little bit different. And so you really get some really cool things that come out of those groups.
Do you get to be that mentor for other people now?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it like a formal thing, or is it just call me when you're feeling it, or?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, there's a couple of people that I make sure that I call on a regular basis just to check in and see what's going on. I belong to a club in Slidell, and it's business owners and executives in that club. And just through conversation, we give and we get some mentorship through those conversations. And but there's a lot of people. A friend of mine recommended a young lady 2 weeks ago, and now we're collaborating on some business things that we're working on. And she's been in business about 2.5 years. Really good person. But there's some things that she even said, I need to learn these things, and you're the guy I want to learn it from. So
what are some of these things?
Oh, it's mostly just back office type. Like, how do you run your back office? How do you do? It's simple stuff. Like when we first started our business, you're thinking this is the toughest thing in the world to figure out. But now it just clicks. Understanding.
So some of the hard skills, but what about the soft skills? I mean, the leadership stuff.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have a whole lot of employees, so the leadership piece of it is not a huge thing. She's got great potential at becoming a huge business leader and successful in what she does, and it's just helping her get off the ground. I mean, you got to have the fundamentals in your business. You got to have your back office right. You got to have your front office right in order to grow and have your processes. And I think that's part of what she's figuring out. Yeah. She's like I was when I was her age. I'm going and going and going, and then when you got the problem, you figure it out. You're like, how do you do it?
It's the little things like hiring that first employee.
Yeah.
You remember what it felt like. It was like, wait a second, it's one thing to be responsible for my own life. Now I'm responsible for someone else's livelihood. And, they got to get paid first before I get paid. Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But it's like you do it and you never look back and be like, oh, gosh, why did I hire employees? I mean, for years, not realizing by not having an assistant, I was the assistant.
Yeah.
So it's like, why didn't someone tell me this? Or maybe they did and I just wasn't ready to hear it.
Hiring your first salesperson because you're the sales guy. You're running around doing the sales, and then all of a sudden you can kind of let it go a little bit, and then you have more time to focus on the bigger pieces of building your business. So it's when somebody comes up and they're like, you're going to hire them, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm going to pay this person that much money. And then all of a sudden the performance is there and they're well worth the money and the business is growing, and you're like, man, why did it take me so long to,
It's the mindset that changes, that when you can stop looking at it as an expense and overhead and start looking at it as an investment, then you can start measuring the return on investment. But the advice I wish someone would have told me that I finally had to convince myself was, like, I'm getting ready to pay this person, let's say $150,000 salary. I'm like, oh my God, I started, barely could rub two nickels together. I never thought in a million years I'd be paying six figures in salaries. But I had to remind myself, it's like, Rufus, you don't have to pay them all up front.
Yeah,
you get to pay them biweekly. So
right.
As a business owner, I could change my mind. I can go a different direction.
Right.
If this is not working for me, then it's not working for me. And so that was like, okay, good. I don't have to pay them up front. I can commit to 2 weeks at a time.
I remember starting the business, and I think in 1 year, my house went into foreclosure 4 times.
Oh, jeez.
And, just struggling.
Yeah.
And then you bring an employee on, and I remember my payroll hit $50,000 for a 2-week period, and I was just like, holy crap, it's just I was stressing out that I was going to have $100,000 payroll that month and whatever, and now I've had payroll in the millions already, and it's you don't even it doesn't even phase you anymore because I think that's part of the growing process. You're growing and you're stressing out and you're trying to make things go. And then as you grow and you get a little more comfortable with different things, some of the things don't phase you as much.
I think you got to stop looking at it as dollars and start thinking of it in percentages, because percentages are less intimidating when you see all those commas and zeros.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at it that way, like, we in my staffing business, we have a special insurance, and when you look at the annual number, you're like, oh God. But when we break it out over the number of people that have working for us based on a percentage of their payroll, then you're like, it's really
cost
not
of doing
that
business.
bad.
Just happens if you budget correctly.
Correct. You got to figure it out.
Well, that's so. These are all things that we would give advice to our younger self. I think the one thing I would say with the mentoring, that even from the coaches that I learned from, or whether it be in my industry or just general coaches, is I wish they would have told me or given me permission to not do it their way, just to consider their way. Because what I started to do is take on their identity or their ideal of who they are, and says, okay, I need to be them.
Yep.
And the more I tried to become them, the further I got to being me. So I think the advice as a mentor that I would give is that, hey, look, I'm going to tell you the best way that I know is not the best way. You have yet to figure out what your best way is. And it's okay to take parts of what I've done, use it until you find your best way. But works for me.
Tweak it.
And I can tell you right now, the best hunter in my company is a lady named Ellen. I brought her up, brand new advisor. And in a million years, she still, to this day, doesn't identify herself as a hunter. She was like, I don't like sales. I don't want to do anything. So I just want to be an advisor. I just want to serve people. And I'm like, Ellen, you're bringing on more clients than anybody else, but you're doing it your way. I says, I could have taught you my way, but that's why you rejected it, because my way is completely different than yours. You were just going out there and genuinely caring and empathizing with the clients and loving them up to where you're their social currency. They can't stop talking about you. And that makes you a brilliant hunter because you found your way.
Yeah,
you know?
we hit on that by the different groups that we have. Like, everybody does it different. And you're going to get those nuggets out of what you do or what Jared does or somebody else. But, I'm still going to take that nugget and then dissect it and figure out what's good for me, what's good for my culture, the way we have certain things. And I think that's what you have to do.
Right. And we got some strong personalities in our Vistas group, so they're absolute on how we should do it.
Oh, yeah.
But you just got to know, like, okay, I'll take that into consideration.
But they're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
They're very, very good at what they do. And like I said, if you can just take those little nuggets and maybe implement something or a piece of something.
Oh, there's wisdom in everything they're giving. You just got to be able to say, don't do it like Jared. Don't do it like Sean. Don't do it like Chad.
Yeah.
This is just take how they're doing it and figure out there's a common thread in all of them.
Yeah.
Figure out what that common thread is, and then put your flavor or your combination, your recipe on it.
100%.
So that's interesting. So I want to talk a little bit. So I'll probably embarrass you a little bit with this, but anyway, we can. If it sucks, we'll edit it out. But now, and I even wrote that when you sent the pre-work for Birthing the Giants. I was one of the people you sent to. It's like, what makes me successful? What is the it factor for me? And the first thing that came to mind, the only thing that came to mind, is I don't know what it is about Spencer, but you just have this likability factor. And I know I'm not the only one that tells you this. You just have this authenticity that people are drawn to you, and I admire that about you. Like I said, I want to be the best version of me. I don't want to be the best version of you because I'll never get caught up to you. But you do. I don't know what it is. How do you approach new relationships? How do you approach new people? Is this a conscious thing, or is it just who you are? Or are you even aware about that about yourself?
I'm as I get older, I'm a lot more aware about it, about why I do and how I do certain things, like how I treat people. And, I grew up, pretty crappy. And I think good relationships were very important to me, just simply because the house we lived in, there weren't any good relationships. And so the people that I met outside, I feel, honestly, I have a brother and a sister who I love very much, but I consider a lot of my friends more family than some of my family, and I think it's just the way you get to know them. And I have friends that are atheists and on opposite sides of the political spectrum who I genuinely love, and I try not to judge people for what they believe or whatever, as long as you're a decent person and you're contributing to society and you're doing all the good stuff that you believe is good, then you're a good person to me. And as long as you're a good person, I'm going to love you kind of where it's at. And that's the way I see.
And I think that may be it. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to frame it the right way, but it seems to be that there's that genuine, like I said, not to get all woo-woo, but the genuine love that I think you do actually have, and I think people feel that. And that is the likability factor that you have on people, because it's not that they like you as much as they like themselves and how you make them feel. And I think when you're given that unconditional love, I mean, I don't need anything in return. I just like you as a person. I love you as a person. And I'm pouring myself and my genuine curiosity into you. and that makes people respond like, "Oh my God, that's like my drug of choice. I need me some more Spencer in my life."
Yeah,
you know, and I like how I feel when I'm around him, so I want to just be around him.
It's a pretty
Isn't that
cool.
great?
It is, and I think that's what it is. Like I just love to be around people. I love people, and when I'm having a bad day, the people that recognize me as me, they know I'm having a bad day, and typically they'll, man, you good? Because I'm not, I may, in that moment, I may not be the person that I normally am because I have some stress or whatever. And so that's what I get back out of it. At least I know enough. They love me enough to ask. And I think, because I'm never going to ask for anything. If I'm helping somebody, I'm helping somebody, and I don't expect anything. And I think that's one of my things is I just don't have expectations of people. I'm going to give you what I have, and if I get something back in return, great. Maybe God's going to hook me up when I head upstairs one day for giving and loving. But I don't expect anything from the earth, I guess you could say.
No, and it's okay to receive. I mean, actually, what you're saying reminds me a lot of the book, the Go Giver. I don't know if you've ever.
Yeah, I read it.
So, and I think that was a big takeaway for me is to not keep score. That part of it, just give with zero expectation. I think the laws of the universe kind of have the laws of reciprocity that says, if I say good morning, Spencer, you say good morning back to me. How are you doing? How are you doing, Rufus? And if not, then kind of something's wrong with one of us.
Yeah.
If that
Somebody's
reciprocity
having a bad
doesn't
day,
happen.
let's figure it out.
And I think, but that's when I think people can sense when you're giving of yourself, of your time, of your expertise, of your wisdom, with the expectation of something returned. It's not real. It's not authentic. So they don't. It's not as valued as much when it's just, no, take this, use it, do something good with it, and the universe will reward me some way. It doesn't have to come directly from you.
I believe that. One of my mentors, and I say one because I probably got 200 or so, gave me a book. I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years ago. It's called Servant Leadership, and it's a religious book, and it talks about how Jesus just he was a servant of the people, didn't expect anything from him. He just did what he did, and he gave it to me, and he's like, I think you should read this because I think it's you, and I think as a leader, if you lead from the front and not the back, and you're willing to put in the work with the people that you're working with, and they see you do it, then you're going to get back tenfold somewhere, some kind of way. And if you don't, you're good. And I raised my kids the same way. I said, look, you get into life what you put into it. Just put good stuff into it. You put good stuff in, you're going to get good stuff out of it. And I think that's the way you got to look at it.
Yeah, if you think about the leaders that we admire the most, the ones that are remembered, will never be forgotten, that will be remembered through all of the rest of humanity is the people like Jesus, like Gandhi, like Mandela, the servant leaders, the people who loved, the people who served and cared for the people, and those are the ones that will be remembered. The tyrants, the great war generals, they'll eventually be forgotten. But those
if they're not, they're going to be remembered as pieces of shit, right? So that's kind of what it is. And I think you're right. You Martin Luther Kings of the world. You're never going to forget those guys,
right?
And they were willing to put the work in for the people that they served. And I think that's kind of what you have to look at.
Cool. So let's kind of talk about the business for a few minutes. So CLS, not too much of the backstory, but tell me what it is. Tell the audience what it is, and how do you serve the community?
So Complete Logistical Services is a staffing firm, and we probably the majority of our business is in the oil and gas offshore, and we supply people that have all the Coast Guard credentials and safety trainings and licenses and things like that to ship owners and just different companies. We supply a whole range of things from captains, on ships to divers that dive and do underwater construction to,
Okay.
pretty much all of that stuff.
Now, why do they choose your company? I'm sure you have competitors out there that they can.
Hey, we got competitors, and I'm good friends with a couple of the owners of my competitors. I think they choose us. There's a you give the secret sauce away a little bit, but we weren't really sure one time why we were getting chosen all the time, and then we had one of our clients came out to us, and they used two of my competitors and me, and it was frustrating a little bit when they came out and said, look, y'all are going to start bidding on the jobs. Like, you're going to give us a price on what it's going to cost us to fill that position, but we're asking it equally between you and these three companies. Mm-hmm. And we were winning. But we started lowering our price a little bit, but we were winning every position, just like we had been before. And so, man, I'm like, I'm still winning, but something else is something different. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Houston a couple of months after they put that piece in, and basically they said, you're the only person that replies within 3 or 4 hours. Mm. We put a request in for a captain, and you got somebody to us in 3 or 4 hours. The other guy takes him 12 or 15 hours to reply. The other guy might not reply at all. But in 3 or 4 hours, my headache's solved. Right. And I'm like, he goes, I can pencil that guy in going on that crew change, and then I'm moving to the next problem. And so I stopped cutting my price. I went back to my normal price because we were still winning. It wasn't about the price. Right. They said it was, right, but it was more about the headache. And right. I think when you get to know your clients better and you understand what their headaches are, mm-hmm. They need a person to fill that spot, but they also have 50 other things on their desk. If you can alleviate that one problem so that they can move on to the next one, right. I think that's the idea of it.
Well, if that's where you're putting yourself, if let's just say if you're getting new business based on price, it'll be the same reason why you lose that business. So if that's as much as you have to give as price, there's always someone that can race you to the bottom.
Oh yeah, 100%. And in reality, we bring new business to the table sometimes, and we're really excited about it until we get to the pricing piece of it, and then mm-hmm. they're like, well, so and so's quote me this. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, use them. Mm-hmm. And when you're done with them, come back. And I think that's kind of the attitude you almost have to have sometimes, because what I've also learned is sometimes some customers aren't good for you. Right. Maybe you lowered your price, and then when you really look at your percentages, like we talked about a little while ago, and you start realizing it's costing me money to have right. this client. Right. And I think when you can make that decision, and I'm not saying I can pick and choose every client that I want. Right. I mean, I want them all, but you want good clients too.
I mean, I think that's definitely worth leaning into. That says, okay, well, it kind of even goes back to what makes you you and that likability factor, but it's also figuring out what's important to the people that you're serving, and price is important. Nobody's going to deny that.
Yeah. But you don't have a good price, you don't make any money.
But to recognize that your time is valuable, that you need fast turnover, that this is important. You had the competitors taken the time to understand that or pay attention, mm-hmm. that, hey, this person has, time is not a commodity that they can afford to waste. Oh, yeah. And I understand that, and I respect that. Therefore, they like you more because of it. Mm-hmm. That's where people want to do business with people that they like, and people that understands what your pains are, what your needs are, because they shut up long enough to listen for what you wanted. I mean, whether this was a conscious thing you were doing, or it's just, no, this is just the standard that I like to deliver on. That was the it factor that was making you win.
I didn't realize it was once we figured it out, we kind of set it as a KPI. How do we measure our success? Is how fast can we reply with a candidate? Because once that one client, I mean, they all liked us. I mean, and I have a good relationship with my clients. I can call them, I can go see them and have lunch and dinner and all. And they like me, mm-hmm. but they don't have to use me if my competitor is doing better than I am, right? Hey. And I think that's. You have to figure out where you are on the totem pole and how to keep yourself at the spot that you're comfortable at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even then you could translate, even though we're costing you more here from a reliability standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, from not having to go through the pain of changing vendors. There's some you should be able to quantify that, or they should be able to quantify that somehow in their head that translates into actual dollars.
They do. I get told all the time I'm not the cheapest guy around.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we give you good people, quality people, trained people, and I think that's one of the things that we offer. I mean, I don't want to be the most expensive guy, but I don't want to be the cheapest guy either.
Right.
I want to be somewhere in that middle where you're maybe a little uncomfortable. I'm a little uncomfortable, and we provide a good service, and I think that's what in the end game is what the service that you provide. It's you can go to a fancy restaurant and have a crappy waiter and not be happy.
And I guess that's really what we're talking about at the end of the day is it's not so much the service, but the experience that people are having.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like I can tell you right now, I've had great food at restaurants. I've had great services at restaurants, but none of them are memorable. It's the experiences that I had at restaurants,
100%.
whether it was crappy food or bad. Well, it's hard to have a great experience without the great food and the great service. But
you could have a great experience with mediocre food.
That's exactly right.
And I think
because if you think about it from a service industry standpoint, service is about making things convenient. Save me time. Get me in and out of there. I don't want to linger. Experiences says, no, I'd like to stay a little longer if I can. That's me shutting down the restaurant and the waiters are ready to cash in and go home. And like, oh, I'm sorry, time got away from me because I was having such a great conversation with my dinner party.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what we ate. We sure had a lot of wine, I can tell you that much. But the so it's one of those things. Those are the most memorable. I remember Tony Angelo's. They're not around anymore. And I used to get. I even worked there when I was a busboy in high school. And but I always remembered the wine room. The wine room was always that closet that was converted into like a little wine cellar, and it was the perfect Italian restaurant setting because you have this wire hanging down from the middle with a light bulb. No fancy fixture, just a light bulb. It's like this is where deals of the underworld get made.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So that was my room. So we'd always have our friends come in there, and people look. And like, I mean, I can say they're not in business anymore. But it was great food. It wasn't like if you're just like wanting the best Italian food, I'm not taking you. I'm taking you probably somewhere else that's going to be a little more swanky. But that was just authentic food. But it was the experiences of being in that room, having it all closed off to the rest of the restaurant. But we would just spend just the full nights there. It's like people are like, oh shit, we're the last people here. Yeah, you want
that experience for sure.
So that's again experiences with the services that we provide, making people want to linger because that's what you're doing is you're invoking. You're staging an experience, you're invoking a feeling, and people are wanting to get more of that. And that's what people are drawn to, not necessarily because you shaved a few points on the bottom line. Yeah. It's important, sure, you can't neglect it, but not at the expense of the other stuff.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Well, cool. So let me wrap this up. I kind of always like this question. I mean, we've given advice to our younger selves through mentoring, and we can share our wisdom. But your 5-year future self comes and visits you. What advice is that 5-year self version of you giving you today? Come on, there's certain things you got to be stopping and doing, and certain things you got to get off your ass and start doing. What advice are you giving yourself?
I think the 5-year advice to myself, especially recently, I'm kind of, I guess, as of last week, I'm a full empty nester, kind of full time. But I think like the 5-year thing is just spending a lot more quality time with my wife and then really enjoying my kids when they get to come home.
Start dating your wife again. And
yesterday was her birthday, so happy birthday, Cherie. And we went we did all kinds of stuff. So she loves to shop, so we went shopping, and then we were supposed to go to Magazine Street, but I ran into a friend of mine who owns a big bar on there, and then we wound up just sitting in his place for a couple of hours. Then we went to dinner and talk about an experience at dinner. But it was just, when the night ended and we got home, I had this sense of fullness because I got to spend the whole day with her. And I don't get to do that very often. We go on vacations, but typically we're with other people, and it's not just me and her. And I think that's my ultimate goal, is just to be able to spend a lot more quality time with her and chill. And
So build that lifestyle business around that lifestyle.
Yeah, when it comes to business on the 5-year plan, I got zero clue. Like, I'm just still running.
Yeah.
And
as long as it's not at the expense of what this is with your relationship.
You know,
Love it.
I only have a few years left on this earth, you know. And,
Hopefully more than a few.
But,
yeah.
I mean, not a few. But,
We can count how many summer vacations we have left on our fingers and toes. So it starts to get a little bit nervous.
It starts to get a little scary, you know. And I think you really start to think about a little bit more what's important. And, you know, every now and then I think about what people are going to say at my funeral. Mm-hmm. You know, was I a good person? You know, did I help people and things like that? And I think more than being a successful business person or whatever, I think that's more what I want people to say. I want people to remember me for the love that I gave them and things like that. So I think my 5-year future is spending time with my wife and loving the people that I'm around and helping however which way I can. So,
well, thank you for sharing that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being my guest and sharing some of these things. Like I said, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I didn't want to embarrass you too much, but there is that.
I don't get embarrassed very easy.
That's good.
Like
That's
my whole life's.
I wouldn't worry too much about what they say about your funeral, unless you start running with a bad crowd, and I don't know. So you be careful.
No, I'm very picky with who we run with, you know, and I think that's kind of that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So.
All right, man. Well, cool. That's a wrap.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Constructive Interference. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow visionary. Keep dreaming big, and remember, the only limits are the ones you set for yourself. Until next time, stay sharp.